I love
I figured Eliza wouldn't mind.
No,
Kind of the name of her podcast.
yes,
I love it.
totally.
Cheers to both of you ladies. I just have a big old thing of water. So
Also, it's 7 p.m. here. It's a bit of a time difference.
That's true.
It's definitely. Although 4 o'clock's not too early for us out here to be imbibing
happy
either.
hour, right?
California, you deserve it.
Exactly.
You've had some stuff going on.
We had a little stuff. Just a little
Yeah,
bit.
a few
bit.
things.
Just a little bit.
Just a
It's
little
okay
bit.
though. We're okay. California's strong. We're good.
California Canada solidarity is at like an all-time
Oh
high.
my God.
I
No, I
bet.
love. I'm sure you've all. And sorry, hi everybody.
Hi, everybody.
as you join in, we're just having a little chat here.
Just talking about how much Canadians love California.
But I know you've seen the map that goes down like.
Oh, yeah.
Oregon. It's
We've
like
been
all
working on it
across.
logistically. Okay, how do we get them?
How do we go? Just take the map and go down a little bit. So, all right, I'm just gonna jump right in and welcome back Eliza Knight. Hello, thank you for coming back to Warwick.
Thank you.
And Rachel McMillan once again. And I think somebody's
Hello.
sneaking in.
Special guest Madeline Martin. Hi, Madeline. Oh my goodness. Everybody, Madeline and Eliza are real life BFFs. Also, your favorite historical fiction writers ever, and your favorite historical romance writers, and your favorite contemporary novelists now. Thank you, Eliza, for like writing in 17 genres. And they're real life BFFs, and we get this live from Madeline Martin's house. How cool is that?
How
Yeah,
cool is
coolest.
that?
It is the coolest. Yeah, Eliza's visiting because we're doing a couple of events here in my neck of the woods. And so I just have to say, this book is amazing. If you have
It's so
ever
good.
silently or not so silently corrected somebody's grammar, this book is totally for you.
And Madeline, it's really hilarious because I shout out to Secret Book Society in my questions tonight because I read both of them at around the same time with like these subversive feminist book clubs, and then like poof, there's Madeline.
Materialized. Well, I will let you guys get to it. I just wanted to pop in and say hey, and of course give you some love. So, all right, have fun, guys.
Great
Bye.
seeing you. Thanks, Madeline.
This is a sign to do more Madeline
Isn't that
Martin
fun?
at Warwick's.
So fun. Yes, doing more Madeline events at Warwick's. And that's why I love the virtual events. It's like, don't think we could have had Madeline pop in down to San Diego. So that's
Right?
really fun doing the virtual events. Absolutely love them.
Special guest.
Special guests. I know everybody knows the drill and the routine, but I'm just going to do it real quick just so that in case there's somebody new watching us, Warwick's is located in San Diego, California. Eliza's joining us from Florida. As you say, her friend Madeline's house, but we got some people from British Columbia watching.
Yay!
Rachel is from Toronto.
I'm in Toronto. Yay!
So just do the little geography real quick. In the chat, so I forgot to open the chat, so the chat's open now, so everybody can chat and let us know all kinds of wonderful things. If you have questions, though, Rachel and Eliza are going to talk for about 30-35 minutes. If you have any questions, though, you scroll over the bottom of your screen, you're going to see the Q&A button. Pop your questions in there. We'll get to those at the end. I'm also going to put in how to order Eliza's new book. And can't wait to after the conversation. So that'll be linked there as well. I'm going to do my quick intro so we can get to this wonderful conversation with these two. We just are so happy that both of you are back with us. So
Thank
Eliza,
you.
yeah, Eliza Knight is an award-winning in USA Today and international best-selling author of historical women's fiction. Her love of history began as a young girl when she traipsed the halls of Versailles. I love that so much.
Oh.
As an avid history buff, she's written dozens of novels, including The Mayfair Bookshop, Ribbons of Scarlet, and Can't Wait to Be Friends, among several others that have been translated into multiple languages. She is the creator of a popular historical blog, History Undressed, and host of the History, Books, and Wine, let's show your wine, ladies, podcast. Cheers!
In honor of Eliza.
And as she said, she lives in Florida now with her husband, 3 daughters, 2 dogs, and I love this, a turtle. And she's here today to talk about her new book, Confessions of a Grammar Queen. I love that title, as I told you earlier.
Thank you.
And joining her is a wonderful Rachel McMillan, one of our busiest people in the publishing industry, and we're ever so grateful for the partnership that you have with Warwick's. She's an author, agent, all-around book and author lover, and hopefully she'll be telling us about some of her upcoming projects.
Yeah, I've actually written things.
Yeah, we've written quite a few things. So
I've written quite a few things.
Have a great conversation. We'll see you in a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Eliza, it's so fun to be here with you. I think you're amazing. And oh my gosh, we already have some love. I loved your new book, Eliza. Keep recommending it to my friends. I loved everything about it and didn't want it to end. So there.
Thank you.
Conversation over. Everybody just buy the book. So Confessions of a Grammar Queen, also greatest title ever. So
thank you.
Something that readers might not know is that authors don't always get to choose their titles. Often there's a titling committee. There's, some stuff that goes on behind the scenes to try and make it engaging, but also to appeal to the widest, broadest audience possible. Was this your title, or how did the title come about? Because I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, so this was my original title. I had two. So this is the one I wanted. It was at the top of my list. And then I had a second one when they asked if I had anything else. And that was Bernadette Swift Breaks the Rules. But I said, I don't like that one as much.
Yeah.
I want this one. And so they did like a little test with the market, and the market agreed with me, which was awesome. So we got to have Confessions of a Grammar Queen. And I kind of got that title from a number of things. There's something in the book where they have like a little confessions moment. Our, protagonist is a copy editor, grammar queen. So that was perfect for her. But there was a book I read while I was researching what, a copy editor's job is and the history of editing and copy editors. And it's called Confessions of a Comma Queen. And so I was like, okay, that is so clever. I love that. And so I kind of tweaked that a little bit for my book.
And I love it. And I have to say, it's kind of kismet this week. I had lunch with my dad's second cousin, who is, like me, also Icelandic Canadian. There's a whole settlement of Icelanders in Canada, and sometimes we all find each other. And she worked as a copy editor for the Toronto Star in about the same time as your heroine worked. And for her to talk to me about because that's one of our largest newspapers, like Bernadette is in New York, talking about the crazy hours that these editors worked, the amount of detail-oriented work that goes into this. And are you a bit like Bernadette? Are you a grammar queen? Like when I'm writing, I'm like, someone will fix this later on. Are you kind of a stickler for things?
Yeah, like it depends. Like I love grammar. I love words. I like to look up words. I get a kick out of grammar jokes. I definitely am when people write there instead of there. I'm like,
yeah. Oh yeah.
Let's have a talk. But commas, I'm actually terrible with commas.
I'm so bad at commas.
It's horrible. And I'm like, I don't know if this is, I'm taking a break when I say it, like, how they're like, if you pause when you're reading it out loud, that's where it comes the wrong place. I don't know. Yeah. So I get super like confused, and I'm like, well, that's fine. I have a copy editor. But yeah, like I love grammar in itself and like the jokes and language and stuff like that. But I'm definitely a confession of a grammar queen right here. I suck at commas.
I think we all do. And the rules change, right? Because I think I'm an Oxford comma girl, and there is a whole subgenre of Oxford comma jokes out there. But I also wanted to talk, before we get into some questions about the story, about the Taylor Swift connection with Bernadette Swift, because there is one. And how cool is that?
Yeah. So when I was on tour for Starring Adele Astaire, I was jamming out to the Taylor Swift album. That was like when she was having her big, it was like a year or two long concert series of like.
She just never stopped.
Yeah, it was constant. So I was listening to it in the car, and this song came on called The Man, and I fell in love with that song. It's all about how if a woman does the same sort of thing that a man's doing, she's called vulgar, where he's, high-fived. And I thought that is so true, from today, from 100 years ago, doesn't matter. And I wanted that, like, just gave me so much inspiration for Bernadette's character, because I wanted her to be able to progress in the workplace and, personally as well, doing things that men typically did, but that a woman can totally do and should be allowed to do as well. And so since I got the inspiration for like part of Bernadette's character from that song, I did give her the last name Swift as like
I love it. And it actually really suits her.
Yeah.
And Confessions of a Grammar Queen, which is pink and matches your top. One of the things that people who see this cover on the shelf might not realize is that this is actually not set in a contemporary era. This is set in the 1960s. This is set in the world of like Lessons in Chemistry, Mad Men. One of my all-time favorite movies is The Apartment. And I had apartment vibes while I was watching this, the culture of the office workplace. And then we have Bernadette in this man's world of publishing. Now, ironically, now publishing seems to be very much, at least in the editorial spaces and in the agent spaces, for many of us, a female industry. There have been some changes, but the 1960s, especially in America right now, is a very hot topic in publishing, in terms of understanding, feminism, women's roles. What parallels did you find between then and now? Especially because, without getting too hot topicy, I know that there's a lot of discussion going on about how much have we progressed, and currently in some of the American discourse, how much is regressing. And was that kind of in your mind when you were tackling this? Were you trying to find, okay, we've come here, but certain sectors of political jingoism would like us to go back here? That's an interesting dichotomy that I thought was fascinating about this novel and this time period.
Yeah, the 1960s are very interesting in a lot of ways because they're trying to change things. And what I often find in history, whether it's the 60s or the 50s or the 1700s, that it feels like with women, we take like a step forward and then like 5 steps back, right? Yeah. So in 1963, they passed the Equal Pay Act, saying that women could be paid equally to men, they could get promotions, they were entitled to all of the same things in the workplace that men were entitled to. But that wasn't what was happening. Even today, women aren't paid equally. Right. I don't know the exact percentage of what it is today, but it's a significant number of women not getting paid the same. And the other thing I found out was that there was no maternity leave in the 60s. And it seems like even today, like there is maternity leave, but it's such a ridiculous number.
We get a year,
countries, right?
We get a year in Canada. 6 months for paternity. And I remember my first editor for my debut said, I'm going on mat leave. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're gone for a year. And she's like, I'll be back in 6 weeks. And I was like, mind blowing.
And 6 weeks is what it has been since women got maternity leave, like 50.
That's not maternity leave. That's an extended vacation.
No. And I mean, your baby's not weaned at 6 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
If you decide to breastfeed. So it's just astonishing. But, back in the 60s, if a woman went on maternity leave, which they didn't have, she typically would just lose her job because they needed someone to do the job and they weren't going to hold it for her because her place was now at home, which is like sort of backwards to what they're saying, like women's, the Equal Pay Act, like we're going to give you everything. No, you're not. And the other thing that is kind of similar to today is that women, not everybody wants to be a mother, but women who do want to become a mother, they do take, the 6 weeks, or sometimes they'll get 12, depending on where they are. A lot of times, women that I know in particular have taken their 6 weeks or 12 weeks, whatever the company gives, and then they take vacation, and then their friends at work donate their vacation.
Oh my gosh.
Which is so generous, so that they can have more time at home with their child. But the thing is that when you take off that time, even if you come back to a job that you've been guaranteed, you have during that time been passed by promotions and you're set back. So generally, a woman who may have been the same age as a man and graduated at the same time, started their job at the same time, you'll find that the man is a decade or more far advanced in the workplace because he didn't have to do all of that stuff.
Yeah,
I just find that to be unfair. But yeah.
And it's interesting because not only do you, and I want to tell readers, you are getting into a book that is going to entertain you and teach you
Yes, it's
things.
funny.
You will not be
There's
depressed.
quirkiness.
And it is not a topic book like I am going to. It is a way of presenting, and this is why I love it. It presents a lot of thoughtful things, but wrapped in a package that will make people feel hopeful. And
Yes.
the 60s, of course, was a juggernaut of so many things happening. And that's why we have so many books set during that time, and we will continue to. And one of the things you talk about, as well as, the publishing world, equality in the workplace. Even today, I saw a headline that Benedict Cumberbatch, Sherlock, has decided he will no longer take a role unless the female co-star is paid the same.
That's
Which
awesome.
means
I
this
love that.
discussion is still happening
Yeah.
so much longer after your book. Another thing that you do bring up is the war in Vietnam, because the heroine's brother is fighting. How did you choose which aspects of this absolute roster and kaleidoscope of political and cultural and sexual and gender tensions were included and what to leave out? Was there a point where you're like, I can't do it all?
Yes. So I definitely wanted to include, obviously, the Equal Pay Act for women. I wanted to include some talk about civil rights. I wanted to include the Vietnam War. And then also in the same year that the book takes place, Kennedy is assassinated.
Yes.
And I was like, you know what? I can't fit everything in here. So I set the
No,
book
it'd be like 900 pages long.
So I did set it before the assassination because I was like, that would spin the book into a different direction.
Yeah.
And while we have all these heavy topics, because the 1960s were a huge time of change in the United States and in the world, I think.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on. I still wanted it to be a focus on Bernadette's journey and like her friendships. And of course, there's a dog. And then we have a little bit of a rom-com going on as well. So,
he's a dish. He's a dish.
So there were certain things that I didn't want the book to spin off. And it also with the Vietnam War, during the year that I set it, we weren't completely at war yet, right? We had army, we had soldiers over there training Vietnamese soldiers, but we hadn't fully set foot in the war yet. So people were sort of protesting it and they didn't like what we were doing, but it was nothing like later in the 60s where the country is divided. So I kept those sort of like things out of it, on purpose so that we could really focus on Bernadette's journey versus a lot of the political.
And I think the 2020s will, in history books be looked at as another one of the juggernaut decades, because how has it been 17,000 years since 2020, it seems? And I think it's really important what you bring up here, that as historical fiction writers, we can't encapsulate everything. And as historical readers, we sometimes center in on the big picture, but people were still human and they were still falling in love. And they were still making jokes and they still had senses of humor and they still had great fashion, despite all of the huge things that are happening. I mean, we're living through huge moments right now. I think a lot of us would say we're living through huge moments that haven't been seen since like the Second World War, with pandemics and all these things. And so I thought that was really wonderful to kind of zone in. And I did kind of have a selfish question, and that is, have you ever read The Best of Everything by Rona Jaffe?
I haven't.
That book, okay, please write it down, and everybody write it down, because that book is very much, I think it just predates this a bit, but you will love it because it's the publishing industry in 1950s, 1960s New York.
I'm writing that down.
Best of Everything. Yes, Julie is helping me out here.
Thank you.
And it, Madeline just popped up like the angel that she is. And I read this book at the same time as reading The Secret Book Society, which is coming out this fall by Madeline Martin, or maybe in August. I think it's
the end of August.
It's August? Okay, so perfect Christmas gift, everybody. And Marie Bostwick's Book Club for Troublesome Women. I kind of read this trio at around the same time, and all of them, even though they're set, Madeline's is set in the Victorian period, have these book clubs that allow women to be subversive and to connect with each other in a community over the communion and power of words, this congregation where they share the ideas in a way that is outside the judgment or repression of what society would dictate. And can you talk about creating the book club for Bernadette and her female cohorts?
Yes. So I love a good book club, right? And if you belong to a book club, you know what happens at book club stays at book club, right? So everyone, you know, even in modern times, people have the chance to talk not only about the books, but they become
they become wine clubs for gossip.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. You get to chat, you get to talk about your problems, you get to, you know, hash things out that you can't do outside of the book club. But so for Bernadette, she is in the book world, and she's invited to join this secret book club that meets after hours at the New York Public Library, which if you've ever been to the New York Public Library, it's one of the coolest buildings ever. And when I did a tour while I was plotting this book, I came across this like gated off area. It had like the old wooden gates that were like the little checker. It was so cool. And I was like, oh, I want to go back there. Wouldn't it be cool if I could like sneak back there? So that's where I was like, oh, wait.
Just get married there like Carrie Bradshaw.
So cool, right? So I was like, I'm going to add this in. But with her book club, it's not just women in the publishing world. So she meets with nurses, lawyers, housewives. It's a whole group of women that sort of encompass a lot of society and women. And one of them is named Ruth. And if you read the history of the character Ruth in Confessions of a Grammar Queen, she may or may not be based on Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So I did stick that little Easter egg in there. But they talk about all sorts of things. So they read The Feminine Mystique by Betty Friedan, which was hugely popular in the 60s. And a lot of women who read it started to think like outside the box and like, well, maybe I do want something more at home than what I'm getting. And maybe I want something more out of a career. The other thing that I added in there, which I was really excited to finally be able to use since I studied it when I was in college, was the Kinsey reports. And
yes. Yeah.
They wrote one about the male body and they wrote one about the female body. And of course, my characters are not interested in the male one. They want to know about their own bodies. And that is something that women didn't really know a lot about, you know, how their bodies worked or what to expect from sex and things like that. So I really wanted to include that as part of the conversation because those conversations were happening behind closed doors, just not publicly. And it wasn't always happening a lot. So, you know, they're like, wait, what? Tell me this. And I really, really loved being able to include that in there because I think even now some women don't know exactly how things work. And it's just a little like, hey, maybe you should check it out.
I think there's a scene in Orange is the New Black that where the women actually have to be taught where certain things are. It made me think of that. And one of the things I always tell readers is that, you know, especially in times where you feel that you might have a different opinion than other people, or you don't want to go on the toxic wasteland that is social media, or you don't feel comfortable talking to, you know, family or friends, the conversation you have with a book is between you and a book. And it's a way for you to experience a new perspective and learn things and develop a sense of empathy without feeling that people are looking in. And I felt that the book club that you create here was a wonderful reminder that the conversation we have between books is a safe one. And the, you know, you do such an amazing, like I have so many questions. I always make so many questions. I did wonder, you know, as I would say you're a publishing junkie because, you know, we got the podcast, the blog, you write in 17,000 different genres. You have several books coming out this year. You have several books coming out forever. You know, was there something about the 1960s specific to publishing and the way books were edited that you learned that was particularly fascinating?
First, I want to say that Publishing Junkie is my cool new title. I love
that. Eliza Knight, Publishing Junkie.
I think what I liked about it is that, you know, women were obviously in editing and publishing before then. One of the women that I based Bernadette off of, there was two, was an editor in the 1950s, and she actually did become the first female CEO of a publishing house, but not until 1987. But it felt like also a time when women were starting to really work a lot more in publishing and have different positions. And so, and it was at that time, like you said earlier, really male dominated. And it's particularly funny because now it does seem to be like much more.
Yes.
But I came across a very interesting character. And there's a guy in my book called Mr. Bass. And I based him off of someone named Mr. Cass, and he
Love
was
that.
on the board of a publishing house, and he was very focused on women's rights. He donated a lot to different women's like organizations. His wife and him were activists for women's rights and women's like right to birth control and things like that. So I felt like at that time there were people coming out saying, let's involve women more, like let's do this. And so to me it felt like kind of like a turning point. And it does kind of stink that it wasn't until 1987 that there was a female CEO of a publishing house, but women were starting to actually have higher positions, like Phyllis E. Grant, who became the first female CEO. She was an editor and she did like work her way up. And so it did happen. And Eleanor Gould Packard was known as the grammarian, another title that I borrowed from a real life person for Bernadette. She was a famous copy editor for the New Yorker for over 50 years, and people loved her so much. And so I think that it was a time period where women really were starting to progress and show that they deserve to be at the table. And so I just wanted to be a part of that with my book.
And I think it's really important that your book is coming in right now because I feel that there's been a lax in journalistic integrity in terms of AI is taking over so much, Chat GPT. People are not citing sources. Here in Canada, the premier of Manitoba, where we've had these horrible wildfires, called out a journalist in, I believe, a kind but firm way at a presser last week saying, your facts are wrong. Journalism is supposed to help me present to the population the facts they need to know about what's going on. And I found that, copy editing is a lost art because not you and I, but collectively, people have decided that it's enough to have a computer do these things. But we all know, especially as historical novelists, if you type in research to a chat GPT or a Grok on Twitter or whatever, you're like, what? No, if gobbledygook comes out, it's not true. So that passion for ensuring that everything is so meticulous and backed up is actually an art that we're losing. And why I thought this book was so impressive at coming out at the time that it did. And one of the things I love about this, and we were just talking about it before we hopped online here in front of all of you, is that the brilliance between the marketing of this book is that it doesn't look like a historical fiction novel. And it certainly doesn't read like one. It's not, okay, I'm not trying to shoot the genre I write in. I mean to say it's very lively. And even though it's not contemporary, and even though it does have the verisimilitude that is inherent to the 60s, it is very activated and vibrant. And I saw a review, and I mean this as a compliment because I think you've pulled it off really well, that the reviewer said this is like if Sophie Kinsella wrote historical fiction. And I thought that is brilliant because she is known for writing these accessible, funny books where women actually have a lot of agency, but you've brought that here. And one of the ways you bring it, and I love this, is because I'm a romantic, you're a romance novelist in many of your iterations of your publishing junkie world. We often equate if a book is about feminism, it can't have a romantic plot. And I find that does a disservice to how most women, most people live. We do have human experiences, even feminists like men. And you actually created quite a dish of a hero. So can you tell us about what it took to create a guy who would counterbalance Bernadette without taking away from the fact that this is a book that we don't want Don Draper right now. It's not his moment. From Mad Men, everybody. But you wanted a guy who will counterbalance without overtaking, especially because the root of this is in the intersection between women growing in the publishing world and men dominating the publishing world.
So Graham is an editor and he's really good at his job. He also plays rugby, so he's super, hot. He's a smart hottie.
He's super hot.
He's a hot smarty pants. But he believes in women having a seat at the table, and he likes Bernadette and he supports her, but he doesn't do things for her. So he encourages her, and he, sort of has her back when she needs it, but he's not going to be the one that's doing things for her. He encouraged her to do it herself. And I think that's important because women don't need fixers. They need partners, right? So he obviously will stand up for her a couple of times when her nasty boss is being a jerk, but for the most part, he really does support her doing things her own way. And I love that about a guy. Also, I love rugby players, but I don't like mean rugby players. So he's, super sweet. So yeah, I wanted to create a partnership person, and I actually got inspiration. I don't know if you've ever seen Legally Blonde, but I love Legally Blonde, and I can't think of Luke's character's name in the movie right now. Emmett. So,
clearly seen this film.
Yes. So there you go. So he supports her and he stands by her side, and he stands up for her when she needs it, but he's really pushing her to do it herself.
He lets her fight her battles.
Exactly. Yeah. So
he
I really
go punch out a guy, but he wants her to feel. There's that great line from Elizabeth Peters, from the Amelia Peabody series. No woman actually wants a man to carry her off. She just wants him to want to.
Yeah.
I loved that. He allows her to grow into herself.
Yeah.
While she knows that, he's there. Also, to find a rugby playing book nerd, I mean, there's the dream.
Exactly.
You've got all the best
That's
parts.
What makes it the fantasy of the romance in here. But yeah, I really loved him as a character, and I like how much he gets her. She pushes back because she doesn't want to have an office romance. She doesn't want any position that she gets or any sort of raise or anything to be said that it was only gained by having the relationship with, a top editor in the house. And I respect that for her too. She wants to get it on her own merit. So there's a lot of pushback there and a little bit of forbidden romance, if you will. And he tries to barge in on her lunches because he really likes her and he likes talking to her, not just even romantically. He enjoys her conversation.
And that's my favorite kind of romance. It's not one of these total immediate lust. Just it's based on something where they do have a genuine connection. And just before sorry.
I was going to touch on something else because you brought up the fact that just because it's a feminist book doesn't mean that women can't find romance. The other thing I added in there to kind of counterbalance that too is a lot of time people think of feminist women as not liking fashion or nail polish and things like that. And Bernadette loves fashion. Her mother was used to write fashion articles, and she loves makeup and she loves nail polish, and she has a different headband for every outfit. She is super into all of those girly things, which just because you have feminist ideals or you want to advance yourself in the workplace or you want to empower your friends doesn't mean that you can't do it stylishly.
And I often feel that the perception of feminists being, atypically not female or feminine and not liking fashion and not liking romance is something that is very much a message that is purported by men, not actually.
I agree.
Women. I mean, the feminists I know are stay-at-home moms and, all around it.
Right? Yeah.
All around. And just before we go to some questions, I wanted to read one really kicker of a line. There's so many good lines in this. One moment's accomplishment does not always filter over to the next. The world spins on its axis, giving light from... I can't even read my writing. But anyway, no, for giving light from the sun and darkness on the other side. That was kind of how the publishing world felt. So this contrast. Yeah. And I wondered if publishing is not an easy world to work in, as we know, because we live in it, as Julie knows, as we all know. No one
Yeah.
is doing this because it's the easiest thing in the world. If we could do anything else, was there anything cathartic about writing about the publishing industry, being entrenched in it from a different side?
Yeah, especially because with this book, I wrote it without a contract. So
Oh,
it was all,
wow.
yeah, like it was all about love for the
Yeah.
publishing world, for writing, for Bernadette, for her friends, and it was just like all the things I really loved about so much just put into one book. And a lot of Bernadette's thoughts and feelings are mine about, publishing, or, I got my pink nails, my nail
Yeah, yeah,
polish,
yeah.
like, so much. I mean, even the dictionary, I studied the dictionary as a kid, for fun. And like, I still do to this day. Dictionary.com has like a word of the day. I also follow the Merriam-Webster Instagram. They post the funniest things, if you're into that. But yeah, it's just so much of what I've experienced went in as well. Even to this day, a lot of male authors are paid more than women authors. Like it's still
Oh,
happening.
it, believe me, in my day job as I see it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is frustrating and I don't know where it changes. But one of the great things that has happened is Eliza has been blessed with many, many, many contracts. Even since this, you're writing like 18 zillion things, which I'm sure you'll tell Julie. And I'm going to bring her back to see if we have any Q&As from the chat section.
Thank
And
you
yes,
so much
we
for all these awesome questions, though, seriously. And I love your
Oh, it was
enthusiasm.
so fun.
I know you guys. I mean, it's always a great conversation when you two are together. Well, Rachel, you always do a good conversation, but it's so
Oh.
fun. They're always so fun. Before we get started, though, can I just say, because this happened at the very beginning of your conversation, can I just say, I mean, I'm an old lady and I don't need maternity leave anymore, but Canada has a year.
Yeah.
I know, isn't that, I want to have had a year. I mean, my kids are older now, so that
A
would
year.
like
And
a year is
then 6 months for paternity leave.
And that is
amazing.
just
But
how
that's why I
humane.
was so shocked with my first editor. I had no idea.
Yeah.
But Canada is not the only country. I think if you
Yeah.
look up,
A lot of European countries do too.
Right.
it's just very
Well,
different.
and a lot of European countries take like normal vacations too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of like 10 days. So for a whole year of work. So yeah, just had to comment on that. So not sure who this question is from, but this person says they really like that you gave the dog a voice and wrote chapters from his point of view.
Thank you.
What gave you the idea for this?
So my book that came out last year, The Queen's Faithful Companion, I actually had the point of view of Queen Elizabeth's corgi, Susan. And I had so much fun writing in a dog point of view that I knew I wanted to do it again. And during this whole summer where I was plotting Confessions of a Grammar Queen, I ended up going to a bar in Ohio. I was visiting my oldest daughter who was in college. And we were just having a drink, and in walks this Great Dane into the bar, like by himself.
Oh.
And everyone's like, "Oh, hey, Frank, what's up? Do you want to fry? Do you want a sip of my water?" And the dog is like, in dog language, like, "Yeah, thanks for the fry, thanks for the water, nice to see ya, how's it going?" And I was like, what is happening right now? There was literally like a dog in the bar, like owning this place. What's happening?
Frank was holding court.
He was like mayor of Ohio, or Columbus, I guess. And so it turns out that his owner was outside. There was like a little outside seating area with another Great Dane who was working the crowd outside. And they were regulars. So everyone knew both of these dogs. And I thought, okay, I have to put this dog in a book. He is incredible. He is just spunky and bossy, but so cool. And I had, just come off of writing the corgi and had such a fun time in a dog's head that I was like, okay, he just has to go in a book. And that is where that came from.
And your editor was like, okay, we have a dog.
Yes.
I guess lessons in chemistry kind of normalized a dog POV.
Yeah. When I pitched the corgi book, so that came out last year. So that means I pitched it in 21. No, it would have been 21. My editor I sent the pitch with a chapter because I knew that you can't just say like, I'm gonna write from a dog's point of view. They would be like, no, thank you. So I sent actually the first chapter of Susan's point of view, where she's a little puppy and like the king comes in. It was so cute. And she was like, I'm enchanted. Yes, do it. And so I had gotten the permission for it, but she retired. So I was with a new editor, and this book actually went to auction. So a new house as well. And I was really worried that they wouldn't let me do the dog, but I had already written the book. So I was like,
and you have a great editor right now.
Yeah,
who's very open to cool things.
She's so cool. So she did at one point say, are we sure about the dog? I said, I'm sure about the dog. And she said, great, let's go with it. And I was like, all right, cool.
Well, it must have been so fun to write too. I mean, because talk about, when you have characters and everything, you have to still sort of keep it in a reality. That is complete fiction, and just, so you have to make the whole thing up. So it has to be kind of fun and invigorating to do that.
It was.
Yeah.
Plus, he gives some fun to, there's a lot of heavy things in the book. And so he has some funnier chapters. And we also get to see Bernadette from the outside on a more like instinctual basic level versus, a friend. And he adds a lot of levity to the book.
Yeah, I love it. Well, one of the other things that y'all kind of touched on a little bit was the whole AI thing. And I just was like in the background, have you heard of AI hallucinations?
No. What in the world is that?
Okay.
That sounds terrifying.
Okay, so it is where they actually will start off. Part of it will be, look it up, AI hallucinations. It's like a thing. Part of it is based in reality, and then they just start making all this stuff up. So it's harder to figure out.
Oh, I don't like that.
Oh, the misinformation.
Horrifying.
It's awful.
Horrifying. So so not to like bring it down on that. But not a fun. But I was like, when you're talking about AI, it's like, oh, wait till you hear about hallucinations. Oh my God. So anyways. So Rachel, I would love to hear about some of the things that you're working on right now. What's going on with you?
I actually finished my biography of Christopher Wren. Yay! It took 2.5 years.
I can't wait to read that.
And it's off to my publisher. And then I am so close to finishing the last round of substantial edits for Operation Scarlet, which has been in the works for a bit. But Julie has heard this, Warwick's readers have heard this. I wrote 22 books and published them within the span of and I had a bit of creative burnout. So my HarperCollins team has been amazing at just being like, Rachel, just take your time and get this done. And it's now at the point where I'm like, okay, this is.
You feel good about it.
It's going to be a book. So I don't quite know when it's coming out, but it's going to come out. And then luckily I've been able to start on the novel that comes out after that. And it's just a bit later than I want it to be, but books are hard. They're hard. And sometimes you can't just sit down and it just takes some time. And I can't talk a lot about it, but it is going to be my first ever split time. So there's a contemporary frame historical part. And I just got back from my 3rd trip to Vienna in the past 4 months because Vienna is my heart home. And this one is going to be me being able to go back to Austria fictionally. Operation Scarlet is set in Paris and Rouen during the Second World War. And that one, I've found a bit of the light and romance in it again. It took some time. Because the job we do is really tricky and it's hard to sometimes get things done because you just can't.
And not being a writer, I don't know how y'all do it anyways. It's all mad.
It's hard.
It can be hard for sure.
And then of course this summer I'm doing lots of events. I've been doing a lot of in-person events, which is great. It just kind of rejuvenates the whole, okay, I'm a writer. This is good. But tomorrow night we're with Bianca Murray. And I'm quite excited about that because as I said earlier, this readers will be her only virtual event for this tour. She's touring Canada. She's not touring in America this time. But I'm so stoked about that. We've got
super excited.
Warwick stuff coming up.
Super excited to have her. And I know, Eliza, this book just came out, but I'm assuming you're working on some new things. So anything new?
Yes. So 2 things. One, next month I have a book coming out under a new pen name. It's called Rush Week. It's by Michelle Brandon, and it is not at all like my historical fiction. So, warning, it's a revenge, scandalous, juicy book. It's got a lot of like, what's the generation? Gen Z
It's gonna have to
language
be a
in it.
Netflix series.
Wait a minute, what was it? What was the title of it again?
Rush Week.
Rush Week. And Hello Sunshine needs to get on this.
Oh, that would be so awesome. So it's like it's girls doing, you know, that are not necessarily, they're anti-heroines, I should say. So some people who have read it are like, I hate all of these girls. And that's totally kind of the point.
That's the point. Have you read Bunny by Mona Awad?
No.
I've heard good things about that.
Well, that is good. Girls doing bad things in that setting too. I love that. You know, it's so secret cool. History. It's all those great books that are.
I'm in for that. And then I just finished a book called Lost in the Summer of '69. It's another Eliza Knight novel.
It's going to be so good.
1960s book. And it's a generational novel. So there's a grandmother, a mother, and a college-age daughter. And we get the point of view of each. And the grandmother has recently been diagnosed with dementia, but it's early stages. So she decides that she is going to relive her youth. She was a singer in her youth, known as the belle of wartime music. And but she gave that up to raise her family. And she's like, you know what? If my memories are going to fade, I'm going to go out with a bang. I'm going on this summer of '69 music festival tour. She goes California, Denver, Atlanta, ends up at Woodstock. And she gets named the Dame of Rock and Roll and is singing on stage with famous band and just having the time of her life. Meanwhile, her daughter has gone to pick her up for her birthday dinner and she's nowhere to be found. And she gets very worried. She finds like a couple of clues. She brings them home. She is talking to her daughter who's just graduated high school. She's going to be one of the first female classes at Yale in the fall. And she's like, I don't know what any of this means. I don't know where my mom is. And her daughter says, wow, those are music festivals. I just saw that in Rolling Stone. What in the world is grandma doing at, you know, music festivals? So they end up going on a road trip chasing down grandma, and there are always several stops behind her.
That's so fun.
But it was so fun to write, and I can't wait for everyone to read it. And that comes out next June.
And the title of that again is
Lost in the Summer of '69.
Lost in the Summer of '69.
So
and
good.
that year, and you must have had a really good time writing that.
I did.
Because that year and that decade is, I mean, it's all through history, you know, there's lots of decades that are great, but especially 1969.
And the fashion, the music,
rich,
all of
the
it.
music
Yeah.
just rich with just so much material.
Eliza, are you friends? I guess you are, because she's a poppy now with Maddie Dawson.
Yes.
She has some cool generational Woodstock stories from one of her books. I'm slipping on the title, but I interviewed her for one, and we went on this huge, like, down the rabbit hole. You should connect with her, because I think she'd be a good awesome. Resource for some neat Woodstock stories.
Well, we need to have you back for that for sure. So, of course. And where will we find each of you? Social media. Eliza, where do you like to go most?
So Instagram is my current favorite, and it's at Eliza Knight Fiction.
Got it. And Rachel?
And I'm Rach Kmick everywhere, RACHKMC. I'm on Twitter, but it's turned into Botville. I stay on there to try to encourage writers. I am on Threads, but that's turned into Botville. Botville just meaning just a ton. But I am on Instagram, where I share where I read. I do have a Facebook page, but Instagram, you can at least see, you know, lots of pictures of bunnies and lots of pictures of what I'm reading.
I love it. And I love Ariel's on here. She graduated high school in '69, so she's already
cool.
So good job, Arlene. So I love that.
I do see a question from Joya.
Oh, I see. There we go. Yep, I missed that.
So she asked why I write under different pen names.
There you go.
That is for two reasons. One is because the two genres are so different.
So different.
Like you want the voice, my voice is different in both, and you're not going to get the same thing. So like if you love my historical fiction, you may or may not like the revenge type novels that I'm writing in the contemporary era. And vice versa. So that was the one reason. And then the second reason was that my publisher also thought that was a good idea for branding, because they are so different.
Yeah, and I agree from a bookseller point of view too.
Yeah.
you have people, they'll get angry.
The reader
A
expectation
reader
is
expectation is
for
a real thing.
Yeah.
And
They
so when they're
definitely do.
kind of going down a path and then you kind of take a left turn on them,
They're like,
it
what's
can,
happening?
yeah, so it's like,
Yeah.
because there's so many different things to read. So, you know, I think that's a very, very valid point to do it that way. Yeah.
Absolutely. And still, and other people have asked me when they find out that I'm writing under the other name, they're like, are you still going to write historical fiction? 100%, still doing it.
Right. Still love it. And then we have, which genre do you enjoy writing in best, from Stephanie?
So I actually really like both. What I've found great for me anyway was that since they're so different, they're each like palate cleansers from each other, and I get to like explore different things. So I love history. I am a huge history buff, and I love living in that world, and I love the creation of historical eras on paper. But I also love like contemporary drama. I am a huge reality TV junkie as well. So getting to like work in that space also is like, it's like candy.
Well, and plus there's things that you can bring out that are really more of what you're thinking right now too.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
that contemporary thing where
it's
can't
harder
really...
to plot contemporary though,
It's
because
very
the
difficult.
contemporaries I've done, they still take a vast amount of research because so much of it could be solved with a text.
Right.
Exactly.
So it's like when you have to somehow make sure that people aren't communicating. I always tell people, like, look at any episode of Friends. Would it work now? Because they just texted each other and then boom, the end.
I have an author. There's an author that writes that only will write pre-cell phones. All of his books.
It just makes life easier for plotting.
It does. It does. And I mean, also, my characters were a lot younger than me, and they have a different language almost. So
they do.
I had to research that, and then also I had to have younger readers as my
your daughters readers. Do your kids read to help?
Yeah.
And like at one point my older daughter was like, Mom, oh my gosh, you sound so like a 40-year-old woman here, like you cannot put this in here. And I was like,
that's valuable, but that's valuable.
I was like, that's perfect, like exactly what I was looking for. So it was great.
Yeah, because it is.
It's such a smart generation too.
Yeah,
and I feel that I trust Eliza with this, because I do feel that the younger generation is getting some flack, and no, they're smart and resourceful.
Really super smart.
And
it actually keeps us young reading about them and staying up on pop culture and stuff. Keeps us,
Yeah.
I don't want to be that. I don't want to be the one that doesn't know how the new technology works. I want to stay connected with that.
Exactly.
Super fun having both of you as always. Rachel, we'll see you tomorrow.
I'll see you tomorrow. And Eliza, have fun with Madeline. I love
you there. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining me.
Yeah, Julie, see you in 24 hours.
See you in 24 hours. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye.